I've had my eye on this for a good bit, but sadly, it wasn't released outside of Japan. Now this is always a toss-up, because these very niche games seem to be in a tricky spot whether or not they'll be brought over in some way, especially ones that are largely centered around Japanese themes. Sucks too because it looked like a lot of fun, really reminded me of the Ganbare Goemon series in that way, because a lot of people, myself included, seen this as a spiritual successor at first glance, being this stylized cartoony action platformer that's pretty comedic and lighthearted. So we were excited to see this type of game make a return, but if you look at how many Goemon games were made, only 3 or 4 of them were brought over for Western audiences. Yeah, I can imagine chances now aren't looking too great, but almost a year later we got an official reveal trailer that it's finally making its way over here. And well, that's why we're about to check it out, because it's kind of a miracle we're able to play it in the first place. This is Combat Overview. Here we go over the general controls, the main mechanics, who or what we use them on, and then seeing how it all comes together. For our main and only weapon, we get to use this taiko drum set. Yeah, we got some more music-based combat. No timing mechanics like Hi-Fi Rush for example, but instead we get to attack with each drumstick. So each bumper is assigned to attack with either your left or right hand, each with their own combo that are the same. There's no unique properties between the two, so don't expect some specific hitbox stuff. But if you alternate between left and right, you'll zip to any nearby enemy. These are weak, but you'll be able to toss out a barrage of attacks that won't stop until you do. And if you attack with both of them at the same time, you'll do a double hit to deal even more damage. Bit slower and it has more end lag, but its combo really hurts those tougher enemies. Now, cool thing about this US release, all 3 moves are given a new charge attack. Charging left would do this multi-hitting spin attack to deal a good amount of damage to a single target, especially those tall or airborne ones. Charging right will have you pierce through a crowd in front of you. Doesn't do much to those heavier enemies, so it's best to use against the weaker ones. And charging both will do this pretty powerful short-range slime attack, just wiping out any nearby enemy. So it's great to crowd control, as you can tell. Onto defenses, we get the classic roll to iframe through attacks. There's end lag afterwards, so be sure not to mash these out. But if you time it just right, get a perfect dodge instead. And attacking soon after will have you zip towards that enemy to instantly follow up. You can do these back to back and will even get iframes during that counter attack. We also have a guard. You can walk around and all that, but it only covers in front of you, not behind. So don't expect it to automatically snap to whatever tries to hit you. Can't hide behind it forever either, because it'll just explode, which opens you up to take damage. So it might seem like a kiddie game, but we still need to be aware of our surroundings and know how to properly use our defensive options. But hey, you can pull off a perfect guard, knocking back anyone nearby and stuns that attacking enemy, leaving them open for a guaranteed combo. Or we can use it to reflect projectiles too. So it's the standard stuff, but it's good for a reason, because they're fun. Looking at the HUD, got our health shown as these hearts, very classic. Can even buy permanent health upgrades at this shop. Not much here, just some items to either use right then and there, like health refills, or stuff to hold on for later, like a free escape from dying in battle, which is worth having. There's also bombs to do massive damage, ones to add extra defense for a limited time, or to get more money for a bit, or to completely refill that henge meter. So there's a bit here, but nothing like Beautiful Joe where there's more moves or anything like that. These shops are just more of a pit stop as you go through these stages. Now on the bottom right, this allows us to use our henge actions. So we have 4 transformations to pick from, each with their own little playstyle. One lets us shrink down a few sizes. It's mainly used to squeeze into tight spots to find a few secrets, and to ease up on platforming, since it gives us a flutter jump similar to Yoshi. Just know that meter will slowly drain over time as you're in these forms, so it'll end eventually. Yeah, we also get one to become this tanky brawler, get a lot more range and power behind each attack you toss out. Even has a charge attack to do this little spin. So if you want to deal with an enemy without much hassle, well, here you go. Next we get these fishing rods, and it just might be the best in the game. Has great range, auto tracks to the nearest enemy, can hit multiple enemies at once, and yeah, just clears a room with ease. Definitely use this if things are getting a little too hectic. Lastly, we get these dual blasters. This might have to be the weakest one. Or maybe it feels that way because to me, it doesn't do too much different than the fishing rods we got earlier, so it's another form that specializes in far range attacks. Auto locks on 2, but thing is, It can only hit one enemy at a time, you can no longer jump, or use any of your defensive options, while the fishing rod lets us keep all those and more. You are able to speed along the floor a bit faster, kinda like Wisdom Form in Kingdom Hearts 2, but it's not fast enough where it outweighs all the things it took away. And it's less effective at its job because the rods just do it better in every way. At least we get this one at the end, so we won't be missing out on much. Speaking of which, once we take down certain major bosses, we get a new Henge license. These allow us to use our new transformations. Guess you can think of it like Mega Man. We fight these bosses in a set order though, so no routing stuff, but it's cool how we get our new powers as the game goes on. Now something I didn't expect, but around late game we can rematch those bosses to go up against these sorta EX versions, being more aggressive with their remix patterns, and defeating them will upgrade that form we got from them. Nothing too crazy though, that form will just drain less meter now. That's it. Still fun to fight these versions, but only 3 bosses in the entire game get this EX version. The first form is free, so that's why there's only 3 of these out there. But yeah, I wish they took it a step further and put in the extra effort to the entire boss lineup. Oh, and make a dedicated boss rush mode, because having to fly around to each stage of theirs is a little much. When it comes to enemies, we go up against these festival troops that each have their own little role to play. Ones that'll spin or march you down with this 100 hand slap. There's floor sweepers that'll rush you down as soon as they see you. Some that'll carry steel beams that actually deal no damage, but will send you flying if touched. You can imagine these are dangerous if you don't watch your step during those platforming sections. Not only does it swing left to right to catch you off guard, but also acts as a shield, so you can't just mash for free. You actually need to work your way around them first. And my favorite are the ones that use kendo. They will block your attacks and have this counter attack if you just keep flailing around. They even have hyper armor on their attacks too, so you better be a bit more prepared and be ready to perfect guard. Even a Quick Man from Mega Man makes an appearance here. So these guys take that boomerang of theirs and just fling it at you. Just watch out for when it flies back. Now since he's pretty good at catching these, perfect guarding won't work, so it's best to perfect dodge instead. We also go up against a few larger guys too with their own little weapon-based move lists, using hammers, clubs, and spears. They hit pretty damn hard, so it's best to take these guys seriously. There's also some mini bosses sprinkled throughout the level too. They usually have some backup too, making this a bit more tricky. So yeah, we're given a solid enemy lineup that approach you in different enough ways. They even combine them with the stage layouts to make things that much more interesting. Speaking of level design, we're given these linear stages. Sometimes will lead to open areas with 1 or 2 routes to find these lanterns that we need to find and break. Some are behind a platforming bit, or maybe a mini boss is protecting it, or some are just out in the open for easy pickings. And once we destroy 3 of them, then we can beat the stage. But there's usually more than that, sometimes around 5, so don't feel like you need to scrub these areas clean. Just as long as doing light exploration, you'll be able to finish the stage. And for the bosses, there's not many, but they're still enjoyable. The first one, Kintaro, does a lot of leaping attacks. We either come down with a punch, leaving a shockwave for you to jump over, or he'll use an axe for you to perfect dodge. He also mixes in a few attacks to chase you down if you keep away for too long. Urashima Taro, the next guy, is a pretty simple boss, and that's because he'll stay away from you as much as possible. We'll do a lot of these dodge attack combos most times. Very well telegraphed, so just be ready to perfect dodge and you'll get through it. Momotaro with those guns of his, this is my least favorite of the bunch. Don't know why, maybe since it felt more of the same compared to the previous boss, being that passive, standoffish sort of fight. I kinda went on autopilot with this one, and got through it with no issue. And the big bad of the game basically looks like Wario. We'll do this forward attack after stomping the ground, and we'll also try to slam a few pastries at you. Nothing too crazy, but it gets the job done. You know, as I was playing this game, it really reminded me of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Now those bosses were fun. The ones here are lacking a bit out of it, more on the simple side and don't have the spectacle like Kirby did with all those over-the-top patterns. So that's where I think this game lacks for sure in comparison. Now, here's a boss that outshines the rest of them, and that's Musashi and Kojiro. It's this 1v2 boss fight where they each have their own unique patterns. They don't let up either because they'll both take their turn and attack you. And as the fight goes on, they only shorten the downtime between their follow-ups. So you need to be on the move constantly and know what moves are about to come out before they catch you off guard. This is easily my favorite boss in the entire game because of the non-stop hectic double team fight. Sadly, they don't give us a transformation, which means they don't get an EX rematch, which would have been cool because their Henge license could have gave us this ability to make replicas. Think Ninja Spirit, Ninja Gaiden 2, or even Mario 3D World. This would have been a lot more interesting to have than another far range form. But hey, maybe in the sequel. And that's BAKERU. This is a nice little game. Well, I take it back, because going into it, I expected it to be a short and sweet sort of thing. But no, there's over 60 stages to dig into. Of course, there's the platforming heavy stages, but they make sure to get creative with it. We do get the different sceneries, which they use to make some new layouts based around that theme. Go to villages, construction sites, a bathhouse, castles, water parks, festivals, and a lot more. Some even go into game show territory, which was cool to see. And as things goes on, these only get more and more complicated. They don't stop there because they mix it up with a few different mission types too. Get the usual auto-scroller, don't have a lot of downtime either to just wait around. No, this screen moves, so you need to be able to keep up and not get overwhelmed by all the enemies and bottomless pits. One of them being this roller coaster. And if you know your Konami games, then yeah, this should look familiar. We also get a few racing stages tossed in here too, because why not? So if you ever played Crash or even Sly, then I'm sure you'll like these as much as I do. And when we have these many switch-ups, you know a shmup section isn't far behind. There's actually a solid set of unique enemy types here, even its own mini-boss. Just the one, but still pretty fun to fight. But yeah, these guys always drop in, making for this non-stop wave after wave you need to stay on top of. I didn't mention it earlier, but we get these massive mecha battles too. Another callback to Konami games like Rocket Knight Adventures, and of course Goemon. There's 5 of them throughout the game, and each bring their own little gimmick for you to sidestep, toss out left to right punches, and end things off with your super. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I like when we're given that variety. And classic Konami were definitely masters at this sort of thing. It's why Rocket Knight Adventures is one of my favorite games ever made. Just did a little bit of everything so we can interact with the game in all these fun ways. And of course the Goemon series did a lot of this too. Now I know it doesn't work with everything. I don't know how I'd feel if Castlevania starts adding in some sewer surfing. So I'm not saying it should be worked into all action games, but it's something I really enjoy when I do see it. Big reason why I have a soft spot for Bayonetta 3. It's the only action game in recent memory that used all those classic tropes. Tossing in kaiju battles, shmup sections, platforming with your new demon slave, and a little rhythm game too. It's also why I'm a big fan of Kamiya's games in general, because you can see a lot of those Konami-isms in his work too. Because yeah, they also have those constant gameplay switch-ups. It can get out of hand at times, but it's just a different way of making action games, and I think we should be more willing to enjoy, or at least appreciate that variety fun pack, toy box-like approach. Our genre has always had these kind of action games since the beginning, so I like to see them be recognized for what they offer. All that to say, it's obviously not some mechanically complex game, and it's pretty easygoing, but it's something I wanted to share because it's just full of personality, charm, and it's just having fun being a video game. And we can always have more of those.